Hello, my name is Matthew Leavenworth, and I'm the founder and director of Pay Love Forward. This is the first episode of what we hope will become a long-standing series, sharing the remarkable stories unfolding right here in Montana. Pay Love Forward's mission is to build compassionate communities for the at-risk and underserved through a mentoring model. And that's exactly what this podcast is all about. In the first episode, I had the privilege of sitting down with Tanner Jorden to talk about his journey as a pianist and his upcoming concert with the Aspen Grove Trio. Tanner's a Billings native. I've had the honor of mentoring since he was a teenager, back when he was just a budding piano prodigy. He was recently accepted into the master's program at the Juilliard School of Music and has since performed everywhere from Carnegie Hall to Israel. We spoke about his development as a musician, his spiritual connection to music, and what mentorship has meant to him over the years. We also talked about his relationship with his wife, Caroline Jorden, a violinist who he met in the Aspen Grove Trio. Billings was their final stop on their garage band style tour across the country before they head off to New York. Don't miss the end of the episode where Tanner offers a powerful interpretation of Shostakovich's Piano Trio Number 2. He walks us through the movements shaped by the shadows of World War II and the Holocaust, an aching piece of music that reminds us of how art can bear witness. It was an absolute pleasure to sit down with Tanner. I hope this story inspires you as much as it inspired me. The world needs better stories, and Pay Love Forward intends to tell them.
Yeah, so this trio formed about 3 years ago with two of the members, the cellist and the violinist. And then there was an injury of the current pianist. And so I filled in, um, ended up meeting the violinist, and we started dating and got married. And so that's Caroline. And then our cellist, Nathan Cox. So we started working together about 2 years ago, and we prepared for the MTNA competition and won first prize at that in Atlanta. And then our cellist, he moved to Juilliard, and so we've kind of been on a short break for about 9 months. But because we'll be moving to New York this fall, we're starting up again. And so we thought this tour would be a good way to kick things off again for our like second phase. And so we're starting here in Provo, where we're kind of based at the moment for about a month more. And then we go to Los Angeles, Gilbert, Arizona, Billings, Bozeman, and American Fork, Utah.
Yeah, that's so cool. So I wasn't aware of that specific background. So you got invited into the trio as a potential pianist, but it had already formed prior to you coming into it. And what's the name of the third member? So of course I know Caroline.
Yeah, Nathan Cox, he's our cellist.
Nathan Cox. And so he's going to Juilliard as well. So he got in, is he already been there for a year?
Yeah, so he just finished up, I think, like 2 weeks ago, his first year, and he'll be there one more year.
That's so cool. So that's exciting. So you'll be going to a place where, somebody you know and have a relationship with is already kind of
Yeah,
blazed that trail.
and a number of other people I know there. It's a really small world in the music community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's in part because there's only that many people that are qualified to be in that community. Let's put it that way. Um, well, cool. Well, so that's kind of the context that we're having this conversation in. But I just wanted to kind of take this back to the beginning and talk about your roots in piano and how all of this got started. When you started playing piano, when you fell in love with piano, when you fell out of love with piano, all of those different components. So maybe tell kind of the backstory, like how did you get into piano to start with?
Yeah, at the beginning, it seemed like a pretty average story of just a kid being interested in taking music lessons. And so my sister had already taken lessons, so she taught me for about 3 weeks. And then she likes to say that she taught me everything she knew in 3 weeks. So I started working with the music teacher at my elementary school.
Mm.
I think we worked together for like 3 to 6 months, and then I moved to a lady in our church who had a
Mhm.
very successful studio. And there was nothing remarkable about my playing, about my like work ethic, anything like that. My mom, I think she had to pay me $1 every day that I practiced an hour to get me to motivated to practice. And so, yeah, it was just kind of this thing I did that it was part of my life a little bit. But I was really a lot more interested in football and basketball. And
Totally.
um, then when I was 12, I had a series of concussions really close back to back. And so we decided that I needed to stop playing sports. And so I was a little bit lost of like what I should do just because like everything that I was interested like I couldn't do. And all my friends were doing that. And so it was just a very lonely and searching period. So my parents sent me to this piano clinic at the at Utah State in Logan, and I just fell in love with like classical music for the first time there.
Mm.
And I think part of that was the community around it. It's like it's similar to the community I experienced in sports. Like it's competitive. Um, it's it can be friendly, it can be a little bit harsh, but it's a place where you can grow a lot. And
Mhm.
so being introduced to that, I came home and I just felt like that's what my next step was in life. And so I moved to working with the teacher at MSUB, Dorothea Cromley, who just I feel like changed everything for me.
Well, she's been with you kind of through your entire trajectory, at least I think at least through high school, right?
Definitely. Yeah. So I worked with her from the time I was like a month before I turned 13 until I graduated high school. So about 6 years. And yeah, she got me prepared for college and really just changed everything so quickly for me.
All right, so you were 12 o'clock, there was or 12 years old, there was the concussions. Prior to that point in time, was there an awareness that maybe you were gifted in this? Like just none at all.
No, I don't think so. Like I remember talking to my third piano teacher, the one that we know from church, and she said like my dad had like talked me up to her like saying you got to hear him, and then she heard me and she's like he's not that good. She told me that recently. Yeah.
Okay, so a period of searching and like yeah, that's like a almost a traumatic period, right? Like you are forced all of a sudden to give up the things that you're really passionate about, and also really interesting too that this what has become part of your your reality, your destiny, had came out of concussions, came out of like really getting knocked off of the path that you were
Yeah.
on or thought you were going to be on. And instead you inherited this thing that you didn't even know that you were good at. You didn't, there wasn't anybody that necessarily saw that. And then, in the process of searching, found something that has sparked a lifetime passion.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Then when did it occur to you that maybe you were exceptional at this, or maybe there was something unique about your capacity to play?
That's a good question because when I went to Utah State, I was literally the worst one there.
Mm,
Um, yeah. Then I was 12 when I attended that, and then I went back 2 years later, and they give so there's like 50 pianists at this festival, and they give three awards away like for the top pianists, and I got one of those awards. So I in 2 years I went from being like really just the worst pianist there to getting one of the best awards there. And I think that's probably when I felt like I had something worth
mhm.
sharing.
How do you
Um,
explain that, Tanner? That all of a sudden there was this just sort
yeah,
of radical leap forward.
I think it took two things and it had to be both. It couldn't just be one. It took me investing all of myself into it and being with a really wonderful teacher.
Hmm.
So if I would have just been invested without the teacher, it wouldn't have occurred. And if I wouldn't have had the investment, then it wouldn't have occurred. But I think it was just a perfect storm at that period.
Yeah, there's almost kind of a lock and key dynamic, like either of one or the other wasn't enough, but there was something that fit together. Which I mean, I love that because one of the things that I really want to talk about is mentorship and that sort of dyadic role that enables people to become what they could become. But just having a passion, just having a vision, just having a desire is oftentimes not enough unless there's somebody else that sees that potential in you, believes in you, and can help you curate that path. And so Dorothy was that person or one of those people for you. Tanner, just to pivot a little bit, let's talk a little bit about school, about high school, and what that experience was like for you, and what it was like, having this gift that at least, because I knew you very well in high school. Um, maybe it wasn't a gift that was celebrated, when you were growing up. Uh,
Yeah.
but maybe just talk about that. What was that like?
Yeah, it at the time it didn't feel like it was celebrated at all, but I look back and I can think of very specific people who I think are the only reason I kept going.
Mm,
Um, yeah. So I started at my freshman year, and it was quite a transition period because the previous year I had been homeschooled just because I felt like I had catching up to do. I was finally getting momentum, like winning competitions and
mm,
learning a lot of new music. And so I just felt like that was a good time to just devote 1 year to just practicing. And I'm really glad that I did that. But it made transitioning back to like public high school really difficult in terms of like the social circles and stuff like that. I would say that being a musician and a Christian is a not is a combination that is not welcome in high school.
mm,
So I received a lot of um, I don't know, just comments and judgment for what I was doing, what I was so passionate about. And
in both of those domains, Tanner, because your belief system is really sacred to you. Like it's something that you take really, really seriously in your life. And so both of these dimensions that are absolutely central to who you are were at least getting some pushback. And there certainly was. I mean, bullying is probably an overused word. I realize that, but there was that dimension, I think, when you were in high school.
yeah. And so I switched schools, and something I remember you saying to me like 7 years ago was like if you remove someone from a situation and the same occurrence happens again, it could probably be the person that is the
Mm,
problem. But I removed myself from that scenario and it kind of just completely stopped.
mm,
It, there, w- it was just a scenario where people let people be who they want to be, and
mhm,
no one really cared, but no one was like getting in your face about it either. And so it was a much better scenario for me.
mhm,
But overall, I would say that high school was not a great period of musical growth for me, just because um, it just felt like I was going through it alone, and um, it was hard to devote so much to something that it seemed that no one cared about. But
mhm.
again, then I look back now and I see that there were many people who did care a lot.
But it was isolating. I mean, that's almost what I like. That was the experience, whether that was the actuality of it, but it
Yeah,
was. And probably the farther you went into piano and the more expertise you developed, like the more removed from everybody else. I mean, it's almost like taking you in this totally. Like you're starting to travel, you're starting to, make friends in music, and that almost is pulling you away from maybe some of the connections that might have been easier otherwise.
yeah. I think on the other hand, though, just that feeling of isolation, and I think I found like consolation in music,
Hmm.
and that deepened my connection with it. And so while I didn't necessarily improve as much as I would have liked to during high school, I feel like it deepened my resolve to become a musician, or at least to have it a part of my life for my whole life.
So, and we talked a little bit about this particular question, and it's one I was really kind of hoping to explore because, certainly as a mentor, and this is true of parents, this is true of mentors, this is true of caring adults that walk with you. We carry fear, right? Because we're rooting for you, we're invested in you, we believe in you, and I know there were mental health struggles, and I would say that to the extent where I was worried about you, deeply, like you were on my mind, you were somebody I cared so deeply about and the outcome was uncertain like it always is until you finally get there. And so I'm curious, just even kind of exploring piano and that experience of isolation but also connection, like how has piano and mental health, how have those things been connected for you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we have talked about how um, I would say music and piano has negatively and positively impacted my mental health. for one, it's like the most beautiful outlet possible. It's there's just things about music that like make everything make sense and make everything feel okay. But then at times I just feel completely apathetic towards it and like um I just I can't I can't be around it. Uh
Mhm.
and so I think that I've had to develop a sense of being okay with just where I'm at the time. And so sometimes that looks like just practicing the absolute minimum for me a day, like being okay just practicing like 3 hours.
Mhm.
Um, and some days that looks like really trying to find what makes it meaningful rather than like separating myself from it, uh,
Mhm.
allowing it to help me. And so I think I approach music in more of a like, what can I give to it? What can I take from it? Rather than just like drilling things and training.
Which what's the result if you lean into that almost like almost masochistic sort of way of like right where you just like force yourself to like keep playing and
Um,
keep playing.
Resentment, always.
Mm.
Yeah. I think a lot of the people who have done that don't have a healthy relationship with the instrument after years of doing that or years of being forced to do that. And so I'm lucky to have parents who never forced me to practice. They might encourage it, but they never forced it. And so I feel like I have a pretty healthy relationship with music and with the
But
instrument.
what does that mean to have a healthy relationship with music?
I think part of it is knowing what its role is in your life. And so at times, like you have relationships with people, there's times when you need to just sit down and work things out with people, and there's times that you just need space.
Mm.
And so at times I allow myself that space, and at times I just really search in the music for um, like what it's trying to tell me and what it
Mm.
means to me. Just because like the people who wrote this music, they were very real people who went through often very difficult things. And so this music was like them releasing these things. And so accepting these things from them, I think can really let us heal and understand ourselves and our world around us.
I mean, you're right, man. I mean, there are wars in that music, right? There's disease and death and tragedy and you know and beauty and all of those things that's contained inside those notes. And so, you know, one of the ways that it sounds like you've been able to connect to the music is by really understanding that and to delve into, you know, what's the meaning inside of what you're playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's certainly the best way to approach practicing.
Hmm. Where it's like you're uncovering a relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's why time is such a big factor in like the development of how you play a piece is because you're constantly discovering and like changing your mind about things in the music.
Mhm.
Yeah, even like within a day, I'm like, I can't believe I thought that about that piece earlier today.
Yeah, that it's this active transforming thing. I mean, it almost even the way you're talking about it reminds me of like a marriage, like a rich, deep marriage. And I wonder, you know, like almost thinking about your career trajectory with music, like if it has that kind of dimension. I mean, marriages aren't easy, you know, but they're love affairs. But they have rocky patches and they have highs and lows and it's but they also deepen in this incredibly beautiful way. And I just hear that sort of echoed in how you talk about it and what it means to have a healthy relationship with music.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. There's times where you're not sure how much longer you can do it, but then there's times where you just don't know how you could live without it.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love that, Tanner. Yeah, like which is, I mean, that's a marriage, right? Like you know, there's times when you don't know like yeah, how you can keep going, and then there's also times where it's bliss and the most meaningful thing in your world, and in so many ways, Tanner, you're married to music. I mean, it has carried you forward. It is a built-in component of your reality. one more kind of series of questions because this really pertains to mentorship. Because I can recall, Tanner, all of these really explicit conversations that I've had with you over the years, and a number of them revolving around whether or not you were going to continue with music like altogether, right? And some of them were like those pivotal moments in time where you're thinking about going to college and like what you want to study, and then most recently, I was in the hospital and talked to you. I mean, the context was your grandfather had passed away, and he was just a towering figure, I think, in your life and in our community as well. And so you were wearing that, and I think it was maybe you were a little bit on the deadened side as far as like musical inspiration. And you were looking at applying to all of these graduate programs because I mean that's the other thing about music, right, Tanner? Like unless you achieve a certain level, like there's not like a lot of fallback career opportunities. It's like either you excel and continue to excel, or there's not a lot of roads to making a career out of it. And so I wondered just to have you kind of reflect on some of those moments in time and yeah, what it was that kept you going, especially
Yeah.
when it was all on the line.
I like that we just talked about like this relationship with music as like a marriage, like something that's not in the past because it's like every day that these like discussions are happening in my head. Like there's fear about like can you make it in this economy and the way that music's being appreciated or not being appreciated right now. And I think last time we talked about that, I was at like the beginning of just this graduate audition process, which is so brutal, and just like getting a feel for some of these conservatories, and it's not always the healthiest thing. And so I was a little bit turned off by the industry, I would say. Um, but it's never really like falling out of love with the music itself.
Hmm.
It's always
That's remained constant. Yeah,
something
yeah.
else. Like maybe I don't want to practice, or I don't want to like for this tour that we're putting together, it it has been far more work than it will pay. But and so sometimes it's the feelings of that kind of stuff that like is is this what I want to do with the rest of my life? Is it going to be worth it?
Hmm.
So yeah, these are conversations I have every
It's
day.
an ongoing conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's never like, is the music worth it? It that question has never been something I've considered. It's
Uh, like I wonder if that's true because I feel like that's the case maybe in the last 4 to 5 years, but
yeah,
I don't feel like that's the case with. I can recall having deep conversations with you where you described hating piano,
yeah, and I think
and that's more like high school. So like just to kind of frame that, but just to like highlight how the relationship itself has evolved, where there were points where you were angry with it, where like like it's something that called you back to the piano bench over and over and over again, and there was like certainly resentment and some of those types of things.
yeah, I would like to think that that has more to do with like rejection, failure, and
Mhm.
inadequacy, and not like the notes on these pages so much because I think there's something transcendent about that.
Mhm. No, 100%. And it's so interesting because been so many moments in time too where your music has impacted me, and this is kind of what the next thing that I wanted to touch on, and it's what I hope to talk about. So I'm really excited to introduce the concert, on June 12th, and just to talk about what this has meant to me as well as to talk about Pay Love Forward a little bit and how people can get involved in what we're doing, but this is something I so fundamentally believe about mentorship. Uh, Mentorship is just as meaningful to the mentor as it is to the mentee. And that's something that just has to be emphasized. And so I can like, and this is what I kind of hope to touch on when I'm talking, introducing you guys and talking about because I don't know that before I met you, I had any kind of a deep love for piano. I thought it was a beautiful instrument, but just through knowing you have fallen in love with the piano. And then, as many people probably who are watching this know that I was in Denver for a couple of years. My son was battling leukemia, And I actually picked up piano almost as a direct result of just falling in love with it as an instrument because of you. And it was a comfort for me. Like I certainly never got all that good. I learned some classical pieces, but it was something that took me away from just a pretty brutal environment that I was in. And that's one direct result. But like I remember so many other moments, Tanner, in our relationship. One was when you invited me to your church and literally gave me like a private concert. And I remember just like laying my head on the piano and just feeling the vibrations moving through me. And like it was just such a moment of transcendence and also just falling in love with those notes and falling in love with that music and falling in love with just how beautifully you play it. And that's one dimension, just the music itself. But I can also like so I'm living in a hospital room with my son as he's battling for his life and just kind of on the edge of that battle. And that was a very lonely time for me. I was utterly secluded in a hospital room, day in and day out, never really leaving at all. Kylie, my wife, was coming back to work. She's a physician at Billings Clinic. And so months on end of just in a hospital room with a very sick child. And even that conversation that we had where you're talking about whether or not you want to keep going with piano, whether or not you want to start applying to graduate school, it it was one of those moments that reminded me that I still have something to offer, that I have a purpose, that I have, and it was like I think I at least in that moment in time was of service to you, and in all of that isolation and all of that kind of just confusion that my family was going through, those moments in time, and I've had a lot of my mentees kind of reach out to me, and it's been so grounding to feel invested in something that matters so much to me and to get to participate in your life because that's what this privilege has been like for me. I've gotten to participate in one of the most beautiful stories that I know of, and that was that's watching you wrestle with doubt as you came out of high school and watching you get find your voice in college and coming to your and Caroline's wedding and watching you guys play together and just feeling like man like that, I mean that felt like a Disney movie to me, Tanner, like the prince and princess man had
Yeah.
yeah, had met each other and talking through those hard things, talking through the loss of your grandfather and that indecisiveness and being able to be that sounding board for you. I mean, I never would have told you, yes, Tanner, you should go apply. But I do think I told you that, because I think that I told you that you didn't have enough answers yet to make a decision and that you needed to keep going a little bit farther until you had the data.
Mhm.
And you did that, and so I told you not to give up too early. And then once you had the data, then go. I've always trusted you. You have such a good head on your shoulders, Tanner, that you make the right decision every time. But I did. That was my one piece of encouragement. But otherwise, it was just to be there for you. But I think that that's maybe something that often mentees and maybe you weren't even aware of is that in those moments in time, you're there for me as well. And that's life, right? Is that we wrestle towards the finish line together, and that's what makes it meaningful. And and so yeah, that was it's one of the reasons that mentorship is so important. It's one of the reasons that this relationship that we've had has been so sacred to me. But it is just been a privilege watching you grow, and your victories become my victories. And I mean this absolute towering achievement of getting into the master's program at Juilliard is it's just something that fills me with hope and inspiration and has even when my family and I have been going through some really really dark stuff. And I should also preface that my son, Gentry, he finished his bone marrow transplant, and we just got home, and man, he's thriving, and so yeah, but we've gone through some stuff together,
Yeah.
and I think that it's the essence of what makes life meaningful. So Tanner, let's because you're gonna play a little bit for us in a moment. let me just ask you this. So maybe two kind of points. Um, let's talk a little bit about Caroline and what I don't know, just the relationship itself. And then I'm also just kind of curious about what Juilliard, getting into Juilliard is kind of means to you right now. And like as you wrestle, I mean, obviously it's a huge move. You got to move out to New York. And so let's talk about those two things and then
Yeah,
have
well,
like,
first I want to talk about Caroline. So,
totally, man.
yeah, so um, through the most intense part of like this getting ready for MTNA competition with our trio is while we were dating, and so I think we got to learn a lot about each other through that process because it was really stressful. We were doing the program memorized, which is not common for chamber music, and it's a really risky move. And so there was a lot of preparation, some some failures on mostly on my part in terms of that. And um yeah, and so just doing that with a person and like growing to love them more through that process, it was really meaningful. So she'll be attending the Manhattan.
Tanner, what you just said is that the hallmark of why marriages last and like and why marriage is so sacred. Because if you can, and I would say that this is so true of my relationship with Kylie that, we just went through, my son has Down syndrome and cancer and I mean it has just been backbreaking, what we've, having to move out to Denver and all those things. And I can fundamentally say that my love for my wife and it's so reciprocated, I truly believe, is stronger and deeper because of what we've gone through together. And so I just wanted to highlight what you just said
Yeah.
because it's so important that that adversity, that struggle actually can bring us closer to people.
And I think that also goes along with just mentorship in that these hard things, like you should allow them to strengthen the relationships that you have with other people because that's really what all this is about, is relationships.
How do you, yeah, say just a little bit more about that. Like how do people allow like adversity to strengthen their relationships?
I think one of the hardest things to do is to like let someone know that you're struggling with something and that you want their help. I
Hmm.
think it's so vulnerable, and I think just being comfortable opening up to the people that you know that care about you, I think makes them feel loved and reminds you that you're not going through things alone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One of the other things that I was so excited about with Caroline and your marriage, one is she's just lovely. Like every time I've met her, it's just like, oh my gosh, she's just,
Everyone thinks
yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing too is that I do think there's a dimension to your world that is isolating when you're in such an elite category at something that isn't, it's not like football, right? Where you fill stands with adoring fans. It's such a niche phenomenon, and to be so good at it, it puts you in such a small category of people that I think that there's not a lot of other people really that can understand the work it takes, the dedication, the all-consuming nature, the competitiveness that is in that field. But Caroline can because she's in that space with you. And also we should just say, because it's a huge congratulations to her, because she got into a program in New York, and then you'll have to give the details too, which is 20 minutes from Juilliard. So you
Yeah,
guys will be able to move out there together, which is also just, I was so excited when you told me that. Because she could have gotten into Minnesota or Yale or one of the other places, and then you're in a long distance, like still pursuing what you love, but like that's so strained. And so I was so excited when
yeah,
when I don't know, somehow that worked out.
yeah. Yeah, I think um it's pretty lucky because these programs can be really hard to get into, and so for one to line up in the same city was a huge blessing.
All right, so closing thoughts to Caroline, because she'll probably watch this interview. My assumption would be, what do you want to say to her?
I think it's pretty cool how we're lucky to share something so beautiful in the music as well as in our relationship and combine those two things.
Hmm.
Um, just like I remember when we were in Georgia, rehearsing and preparing for that competition as well as just performing, like thinking during the performance, just like how beautiful it is, this intersection of like the most important relationship in my life as well as the like most important passion of my life, music, and
Mm,
just how meaningful that combination is for me. And so And I love that, like in her biography, she says like her favorite thing is to play with her husband Tanner. And so I just know that we'll be doing this for the rest of our life, and
Mm.
it's it's pretty cool, and we're pretty lucky that we get to do that.
What's the connection between faith and music?
I think that our relationship with music can share qualities with our relationship with Christ, in
Mm.
that at times like we bring things that we don't understand to Christ, and he understands us because he's been through these things, um and there's just like qualities of music that you can't explain, but just that resonate with you and just make you feel understood and helps you navigate the world. And so I feel like they share that quality. And I certainly feel like a lot of music comes from the divine, and that some of these composers certainly had a, um, I don't know, window into heaven or
Like a
something.
portal, like a gateway, yeah, where you're looking into something that's on the other side. But
Yeah,
what you said there though, like, because it's almost like you're taking your confusion and your uncertainty, and you can take that to Jesus, and you can orient yourself and you can organize yourself, but also with music, like, and you were even describing that too, where it's like it's this evolving relationship with a piece, where it's like the understanding grows through the process of learning it.
yeah, yeah.
That's a really, really cool, Tanner. Okay, so a couple final questions here. Yeah, what does it mean to have gotten into Juilliard and to be, going on this next big adventure, next big journey?
Yeah. I think mostly I'm just excited to be in a place that there will be like so many gifted and hardworking and brilliant people, and to
Mhm.
learn as much as I possibly can from them. Because I'll have a really, really incredible teacher there, but
Mhm.
I'll also have countless colleagues who are doing incredible things. And so I'm not just going to learn for 1 hour a week with my teacher. I'm going to learn every minute that I'm there.
Just immersive, like you're just going to be in it, living
And it'll
and
be hard because um like I'm sure that everyone there is just like so incredible, and so you're always just doubting yourself and
Mhm.
just wondering if you'll be good enough to make it because you're surrounded by this greatness. But I I feel like I have some of the tools that I need to navigate that, and just
Mhm.
like to not compare myself to others, because that's like what point is there in doing that, but just to lift other people up and hopefully be lifted up while doing that.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's, in some ways it's like like a conclusion, like it's this like stamp of approval, like you got into Juilliard, but in another sense, it's like just the beginning of what is going to be a radical and challenging learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah, I try not to think too much about that. Like the name, just it's
Mhm.
just another school where people love music, and
Mhm.
good to go share in that.
Mhm. Yeah, that component is just a celebration.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Tanner, okay, one final question, then let's have you play for just a little bit. What would some of the highlights in your career be? Like when you think of standout moments where the cosmos click together. Um, and I mean, I know one of them, I know when you were younger in high school, you always wanted to play Carnegie Hall, and like you got to play Carnegie Hall, which is just pretty cool.
yeah,
But
that was
yeah, what are some of the highlights when you think back on your.
um one of the recent ones was playing a Mozart concerto with the Milwaukee Symphony, which is a first-rate orchestra, really incredible, and just my favorite music in the world. And that just felt like I wasn't gonna achieve anything greater than that. Like, and I was so happy. It was just It was amazing.
Mhm.
But then also some of the stuff I've done with this trio, it is, I would say it's the highest level of music making that I've partaken in, and that's why I'm excited to share in more of this.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited,
And
Tanner.
we've never done anything like a tour. Like I think we're driving probably four or 5,000 miles in 2 weeks, and
Huh.
it'll be great. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Yeah, and I mean, it's like, yeah, it's almost like the garage band kind of thing where you like get a van with like, I don't know. I love that. That's
Except we're in my Ford Focus, so.
nice. You're gonna put
And
some
maybe
miles
we'll
on
be in the
it.
back seat with a cello.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Tanner. Let's play then a little
Yeah.
bit
Well,
and tell us a bit about
I
what
wanted to
you're gonna play.
introduce the piece a little bit. So this is Shostakovich's second piano trio, and Shostakovich wrote this in 1943 and 44 in reaction to his friend's death. This friend, I believe, died in the war. His name was Solortinsky, and Shostakovich, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said that he didn't believe he could ever write a note of music again, and this kind of got him out of that. And so this piece features a lot of lament and like dizziness and worry and but also a lot of joy. And that's something I kind of wrestled like where did that come from? And
Mm,
just like the resilience to like have joy within these moments. So the piece opens the first movement with the ensemble kind of flipped upside down. So typically the cellist is the cello has the bass, the piano is like the middle range, and the violinist is the soprano. But the cello is playing harmonics, which are basically super high notes, and the violin and piano are in their lowest registers.
mm,
And so you just immediately have this sense of like unsurety and like eeriness, and it creates this icy and hollow texture.
mm.
It just feels like you're in this lonely tundra. So I'll play a little bit of my part from that. And so then the tundra feels like it's beginning to thaw. We have the cello and the violin playing plucked notes, and then I have. And so things begin to gain momentum, and then we arrive at a really joyful, like a celebration, a dance, and I'm not entirely sure what it means in that context, but it seems like the people are resilient and they're not letting this like oppression crush who they are, and so. And then the piece ends with the piano and the cello playing the dynamic piano, so very soft, and the violin is playing fortissimo on top of that. So the piano has. And the violin is. It's like they're trying to like silence the people, but there's people who are just speaking through this oppression. So then the second movement is kind of a violent but like almost disturbing dance.
Mm.
But then in the middle of that, there's like what feels like a hoedown. It's just so joyous. It's. But then we return back to the dance, and it ends in a flurry.
Mm.
Then the third movement is what we call a passacaglia. It's a sequence of repeated chords. So we have 8 chords. And so those 8 chords are played about 7 or 8 times throughout the piece, and then the violin and the cello have just the most mournful but beautiful theme on top of that. Then the 4th movement is what is often referred to as the Dance of Death. So Shostakovich had heard that at the concentration camps, the Nazi guards were making the prisoners dance on their graves before they were killed. And so he was just, of course, horrified at this. And so some of this is written in reaction to that. And so this opens with what we had in the first movement. And then the piano, so that was the violin. Then the piano has a theme that actually comes from Shostakovich's 8th string quartet. It's very repetitive, very jagged, and very obsessive. And so we have both of these themes, some others thrown in as well. And these contain Jewish scales, which I think represents this idea of the concentration camps. Until we build up to a triple forte climax, where the piano has octaves in both hands with that theme. And while it's pretty fun to play, it's actually just like the most gut-wrenching and like impactful music after what we've been through. It feels like the world is ending and like there's nothing you can do to escape it. And so after this climax, it's like all the floodgates open, and we're just given the most mournful section. And so it opens with broken chords. And so for musicians out there, you might have heard that those chords, the chords from the 3rd movement. And then after these chords, we have like a very fluid texture from the piano. And on top of that, the violin is playing. Which comes from the very beginning of the piece. So it's really interesting how he ties this piece together. So after this section, we're just right back to the... It kind of reminds me of just like going about village life, just trying to pretend that nothing happens so that you're not next on their list. And the piece ends with these chords from the Passacaglia. But then this time they resolve in E major instead of E minor. And so I've thought a lot about what that could mean in the context of this piece. And I've also been playing a lot of Schubert lately. And usually when we have something like, after something so horrific, we have something beautiful like that, it usually like is looking forward to the peace that we'll find after this life. And so it could have something to do with like just that feeling of resolution that the pain will sometime be over. So it's a brilliant work. I suggest everyone doing their own homework on it just because it will certainly enrich your life.
I'm so excited, and I love how you explained it and just described all of the nuance and the character and the complexity that's contained in there. And I just think that echoes back to our conversation where, it's this type of relationship that you have with the music, and the more you learn about it and the more you know about it, the deeper and richer that gets. And I mean, absolutely, you could take your uncertainty and your pain to a piece like that and feel it echoed inside of the music.
Because it represents people who did experience that. And so I think you always have a sense of like being heard when you know that other people have experienced what you've experienced, even if it's not the horror of dancing on your grave before you're killed.
But it's also that world has been lived, and that's a component of the human experience. And I don't know, like we integrate into that at a level, and also those pages, that music is an echo of, I don't know, the depth of the human experience, and even just the idea that beauty can come out of something so horrific. And I mean that echoes in everybody's lives. Like all of us are carrying things that are just, impossibly unimaginable. And yet beauty can come from them. I mean, even like your piano came from concussions in some very real respect, which is such a I didn't know that part of your story, and that was really interesting to hear. But I mean, I think that's oftentimes what music is. That's what meaning is. That's what mentorship is how do we make meaning and how do we make beauty out of, I don't know, the complexity of our experience. And Tanner, you do that better than anybody. And I'm so excited. So let's just one more time. So it's June 12th. It's the Lutheran Church on Grand Avenue. Say the name again.
King of Glory.
The King of Glory Lutheran Church. It's on Grand, and the concert is open and free to anybody who needs it to be. Our suggested donation is $30, but like everything Pay Love Forward, it's pay what you can. So the cost should not be a barrier to coming and enjoying this. And I'll just finish with, I think there are multiple reasons to come and celebrate this with us. One is that Tanner, Billings, our community is so proud of you and what you've accomplished. And so this concert is a celebration of that as we kind of beckon you or say farewell on your way to New York. One is that the music is just so utterly beautiful in and of itself, and so worth being enjoyed for just for that beauty. And also, yeah, I mean it's a celebration of Billings too. Billings is an amazing city. We do great things, and I think you're an example of that, Tanner. And I'm so proud of you and so excited for the concert. I can't wait to sit in those front pews, man, and just absorb the music. It's been such a privilege and an honor to walk this journey with you, Tanner, and yeah, can't wait for the 12th. Thanks for listening to the Pay Love Forward podcast. If this conversation moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't let it stop here. Pay Love Forward is more than a podcast. It's a movement, a community, a way of living. We believe that everyone has something to give and someone to become. So here's our invitation. Find a mentor, find a mentee, and come to one of our community gatherings. We would love to see you there. Check out our Facebook group and visit www.payloveforward.net to get connected. Let's build something beautiful together.